This is Minda Wilson with Urgent Care, and I'm very excited to welcome my guest today, Mary Seau. She founded a group in memory of her brother, Junior Seau, in order to educate people about what's going on with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a degenerative brain disease. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Growing up, were you a football fan?
Growing up in our family, we loved all kinds of sports, from volleyball, basketball, track, building go-karts, racing down on Bree Street, down the street from where we live, from swimming, body surfing, anything that kept us active and competing against each other.
So did you have a big family?
Only 6 of us in the family, but we would have family get-together when it was football season. But I particularly didn't really watch football. I would be like on the far side in the kitchen, and I can hear everybody yelling, screaming, cheering, whatever it may be that's happening on the Sunday night football game. But watching football with my brother Junior, I didn't really like watching high school football, but I did go to support him because Junior had always tested me the night after the football game. So how many touchdowns did I make? He was also a quarterback too. How many passes did I make? And I had to know the yardage and the time, because the yardage and the time was important to him, because at that point he knew that I was watching the game. Being a football player fan, I really wasn't a football fan. I was more of
a fan for your brother.
I was more of a basketball, yes. Support both my brothers. My older brother David and Savai, and then Junior was the third boy in the family.
Oh, wow. Did both your brothers play in college as well?
Yes. David never played Pop. David and Savai never played Pop Warner, but they did play side football at junior high school, same as Junior, and then they played high school football, and then they both played in college as well. And
wow.
where Junior played Pop Warner, and he also played flag football. He also played football in high school and USC, and of course everybody knows NFL. So he did more playing time than my brothers David and Savai.
And it seems like, just from what I've read about him, about Junior, that he was really a stand-up guy. You know, he started the Junior Seau Foundation, you know, when he was a young man, to help other people. He was, very charismatic. He was just a warm, wonderful person.
He's been like that since he was a little kid. Always in the house. He could never sit still. He always had to play. He always had to have a ball in his hand, even if it was a basketball, a football, or a baseball, the hard one, not the softball, the hard ball. And he always had to throw it around the house. He always had to throw it to himself as he's running. And he gets Savai involved, and getting those two boys together, according to my mom, was a big headache, because my parents always told them never play ball in the house, which when they're not home, they're playing ball in the house, and then they break something. But watching them was fun to watch, because Junior would just laugh really hard and always try to compete with survive, trying to run around the dinner table, who can catch who can tackle who. He always smiled, was always friendly to other people, in the house, at church, in school, wherever he goes.
Yeah, but it seems that he was a wonderful person, and then over time, as he continued to play football and he continued to sustain these concussions, things in his personality started to change.
And yes, and people were not aware of, especially myself, when I noticed the difference in him when I had gone to visit him and his eyes. I didn't know anything about brain injury until after his death, but going back, his pupils would have enlarge, increase, and decrease. And I found out that our eyes are the heart of our, all human brain. And then going back and reading that I knew back in college about the frontal lobe, how it changes a personality. And if you watch some of his football games, he always tackled or hit either from straight on, which is the frontal lobe, which deteriorates his personality, emotions, and intelligence, ability to concentrate, and also to solve problems. His awareness was deteriorating. And if the frontal lobe and the temporal and the brainstem and the cerebellum, if they're not working together, if they're not firing together, they're not going to work together. It's just like a car. So what I found out that all this time that this disease called protein tau was eating up his brain like cancer and HIV. It's almost like that. It's just eating your brain and your whole body. When he was the first year as an NFL player, second year NFL player, I saw that. I saw his body just deteriorating. His bones, his toes, his fingers. I saw all that, and all that had to do with brain injury. With this passing, that's when I learned everything about, wow, all this time that you were asking me for help to find out, the youth brain, and they would laugh at you because I didn't know what you were really talking about. And now that you passed away, I learned a lot about what you wanted me to do, and I could have helped you out.
But you can help him now, right?
Yeah. And what I've been doing is I've been doing little CTE talks around San Diego. I did 4 of them in Oceanside. And what I do is I go to these, like the bars that have screens that I can use to show my PowerPoint. And then people come in, pay for their food, and talk about my brother, talk about his brain, how he came to where he was in 2012, how he was energetic from the very beginning. And with the brain injury that he has had, is the so many hits that he had sustained since Pop Warner all the way through NFL. And that all this time there was a tau in his brain that just grew bigger and bigger and eating all the tissue in his brain, that I cannot imagine that he had no brain left.
If somebody's playing football now, is there a test now that they can see if they have the same thing?
You cannot detect CTE when you're alive. It's diagnosed after death. But with the right technology, they may be able to determine where the lesion is, and they will, there's this machine, TMI, and I forgot the long term of it. When they find that lesion, they'll take care of it. But we don't know how that lesion is. It could be in the cerebral where we cannot find or see because it's way in the middle of the brain. So it can continue to grow. And when it continues to grow, it's not the same symptom. It could be something else. And then that symptom may not help that patient or the brain survivors. They would have to go through another treatment. And it's treatment after treatment and expenses after expenses for these loving parents who are taking care of their brain survivors. And some of these brain survivors are on their own.
So so I understand that Dr. Ann McKee is very active in the field now, and she treats these patients, and that
yes,
you work
Dr.
with her.
Yes, I'm the Early CTE program there, and my fundraising, that I raise money and I give her proceeds goes to the Early CTE program, and I also some of the money here in San Diego to help families out who the insurances, they do not pay for the high tech brain CTEs. So, but with Ann McKee, right now, not being able to identify in the living, but what her group does is they are trying to find a treatment to stop the tracking from becoming much bigger problem than what it is today. They're still working on it, and I'm working really hard to raise more money or enough money to have them find a cure for these brain survivors, because we have millions of Pop Warner kids are still playing Pop Warners, and these are future kids that's going to continue on playing in high school and college, and think something needs to be done. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue on trying to give out the awareness and education to younger family members for their kids to to help save their kids' brain and find another activity for them.
So there right now, if your kid's playing football, there's really nothing. The helmets don't really prevent the brain injuries. Is that right?
No, this is my opinion. My opinion with the helmet and the shoulder, it does not protect the brain. The brain still floats in your skull, and when you are contacted by your opposite opponent, if you're hit in the head, so you got the frontal lobe, your brain crushes down to your brainstem and then moves forward from your left to the right, whatever direction that you're hit. And the helmet honestly protects the skull from breaking to get to your brain. The helmet, when it hits your neck from breaking, either way, it protects your neck from breaking. So that's the protection that the helmet and the shoulder pad is helping these individual players, no matter what if you're playing Pop Warner or high school. Pop Warner is more vulnerable because the kid's brain is still maturing. Their neck is still maturing. So once they play Pop Warner and they move further into playing football, they're going to find a lot more problems with their spine. They just don't know it, because everybody talks about the brain everybody talks about the helmet, but nobody's talking about the helmet and the shoulder pad. No one is talking about it's always individual. And then that's when I say, well, you guys talk about the helmet, but when either way, how the football players are hit, for the right side, what about the brainstem that's hanging from the neck area? And how close is it to the cerebral? Because that is very effective. And the scientists can't really, or the doctors, they can't really pinpoint because the cerebral is like way in the middle of the brain. And way in the middle of the brain is where you cannot detect the protein tau that's building, and it just grows, and it's eating your brain, and then just go when you finally see on the MRI or the CTE, the CT scan is when they finally see it. But it's too late.
Right. By the time it becomes visible on these tests, you've already had the injury to your brain sufficient so that you can see it. That's what you're really saying.
Yes.
That's a great tragedy. And the thing that's so sad is when you look at your brother, here was a young, very charismatic, very thoughtful guy, someone who struggled to play a sport that he loved, and the injuries to his brain took his life away from him. I mean, he was people admired him. He was charitable. He spent a life giving and thinking of others, and then at the end, the person that died in the end wasn't the person that you knew growing up.
Yes, it took that protein tau just stole his life away from everybody. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is the word that just hits me. The word that nobody will understand, that it will rob your kids, your loved ones, away from you.
So if people want to reach out to you and donate to your cause or have you come and speak, what's the best way for them to reach you?
My email is seau.mary@gmail.com, and that's my email address.
And so they can reach out to you via email. And the other thing I'd like people to know is that this is something that not just affects people who are involved in sports, veterans who have suffered concussive brain injuries also can experience CTE. Race car drivers, people who drive in race car drivers or are in automobile crashes. It's not just confined to people who are athletes. Is that right?
Yeah. This is chronic traumatic encephalopathy is all humans with brains that is affected with this. And yes, it's military, workers' compensation, your family member living at car accident, name it. Anything that traumatizes your brain is affected from this chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Some of them will be able to come back to life, and some of them will be lifeless. Will walk around with senseless life, and it's really bad. With the military men and women who signed up for the services, and I thank them for their services, but they come back home less than a year because of the traumatic drama that had happened to them while they were on the field. And one blow after blow to their head, and their head hits them again from one spot to the next, but then there's a vibration. And then there's another blow and another blow. And that's why they don't last more than a year. They come back months, 7 months. And it's really sad because the government doesn't really recognize brain injury. They're getting better at it, but there's so many out there right now, homeless, that it's not that they don't want to get help, it's that they don't have no emotion of or no, they're just senseless. They're lifeless at that point. And it's heartbreaking to see.
Oh my, yeah. Mary, I understand you have an event coming up that people could participate in.
Yes, I have an event coming up called Protecting Athletes and Veterans from Concussions and CTE. It's on March 2nd, 2019. It's on a Saturday at 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. My website is msctefoundation.org. The keynote speaker will be Dr. Robert Stern from Boston University, and our one and only Dr. Michael Lobat, who is the rehabilitation for brain injury at Scripps Memorial Hospital. And we will also have testimonials. Tony he's a firefighter who has a brain injury, and we have mom and dad that will speak in behalf of Junior. We have a military young man who sustained brain injury while he was in the service. So it's going to be a very educational and awareness this March. This is my second annual. I had one last year, March, and it was such a success. Everybody walked out of there with an awe. They learned so much. They thought they all came out saying, I thought I knew what brain injury was, but this took it to the next level. This is very important to have people come and attend because they will hear it from the doctors. These are neurologist doctors, brain doctors. And again, Dr. Stern is from Boston University. He is with Dr. Ann McKee, Dr. Nowinski, and they are the scientists for brain injury.
If people want to reach out to Mary and talk to her about making a donation or getting involved, they can reach her at her email, seau.mary@gmail.com. If they're interested in learning about the CTE Center at Boston University or Dr. Ann McKee, they can go to the concussionfoundation.org and look up CTE resources. And for those who for those who are suffering from CTE or may be suffering from CTE or have children or family members, these are very good resources that you can learn about and can hopefully make it so that you can intervene early and prevent what happened to Junior from happening to you or a family member. Anyway, this is Minda Wilson for Urgent Care